And Pakistan was contemplating something will happen, we will not let it go unpunished, Death to the terrorist, We killed almost 100 terrorists in those 9 strikes on 7th. Situation where, their population will now get hurt, their infrastructure will get destroyed. The ISIS, what we have seen in Syria, what we have seen in Afghanistan, these guys are equally ghastly, equally, I would say, radicalized.
I'm Patrick Lancaster. I'm here in India showing you as many different perspectives on the India-Pakistan war as possible. We got a banger for you today. We're going to be meeting with a Major General Dayal, and he's going to be telling us what's been happening from a military perspective, what might happen in the future, what has happened in the history, and everything in between. Of course, we're only able to show you one side right now, but we're doing our best to show you this side. We can't be everywhere at one time, but we're getting to the top, we're getting to the bottom, we're showing you the military perspective, the civilian perspective, the political perspective, the religious perspective, and how these things all intertwine in the tensions between India and Pakistan. So we're going to keep on showing you as much as possible. Make sure you watch the full report, and if you haven't seen my reports already here, make sure you go back and watch them because it all intertwines together. Let's do this together. Let's learn together. This is not my perspective or my understanding. I show you what the people that live this see and feel. Please like, share, and subscribe. We got so much more to come. And also, don't forget, right now, go down to the link comment and the pinned comment. Click on the donation link. Donate to support my work. Click on the link on the screen or in the description. My work is only funded by you, my viewers. I'm here because of your support. Help me finish this out strong. I want to get to the front line soon. Hopefully we get as close as possible, if not on the front line or the border. Got so much to come. We show you things that you might not see in other places. Please like, share, and subscribe. Donate now. I need your help to do this set of reports and future reports. We're out. So without further ado, Major General Dayal. Hello, General.
Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Great. Really appreciate you seeing us and talking to us today about the situation. As I told you before, we're here trying to get as much information from as many different perspectives. So I think my audience will really get something out of your input and your point of view on it. I think this is really amazing for my audience and me, for that matter, to learn from you. So could you possibly tell us, through your 37 years of military experience, what happened from the military standpoint in the last month, and how did it all play out?
Firstly, Patrick, thank you. Secondly, Patrick, I must compliment you and your viewers that in this hot summer, you've taken the trouble to come to India and be an Indian friend. And put the Indian side, Indian perspective to your viewers. See, it all started, we've had relatively much peaceful Jammu and Kashmir, in the last 10 odd months. We've had 2 elections last year. One, the parliamentary election, and the other is the, assembly election, which was held after 5 years. And during the assembly election, a popular government with popular vote, with over 45% of votes, came to power. Securing, and the voter turnout was as high as in any democracy. It could be a liberal democracy where the voting is not forced, where the voting is volunteer, and almost 65% people voted. So 65% is a large number, So people were yearning for governance, for their for prosperity, for that sort of environment, which is everywhere, like in India, like the other states. So Jammu and Kashmir was first time looking like any other state of India, with a civilian government, with people, with all sectors the industry was growing, the health sector, there were, education, children, everything was looking very normal, calm, peaceful. When on 22nd of April, the terrorists, they enacted one of the most ghastly act of, killing 22 civilians. 22 are killed, and selecting them and traumatizing them, and and you're intimidating them, and then creating that psychosis, that fear, and then killing 22 and injuring more, and then getting away into the jungles, So there was a anguish in the country per se, because the way it had been done, it was also given a religious color, trying to divide the society between the Hindu-Muslim society, the two dominant factors of our society. I mean, the Hindu larger and minority Muslim. It was also targeted to, to make look, the Srinagar as a disturbed area, and making the government ineffective there. So it was wholesome package by the terrorists, and So we were very clear that who the sponsors are. We were very clear who had orchestrated this. We are very clear that who's behind all this, whose hand of terror was this. This hand of terror, government of India, and we were very clear that this hand of terror is nobody but Pakistan Army, Pakistan ISI, and the Pakistan deep state had orchestrated this. It was just a facade, that the Tanjeems were working. It is actually the deep state. And probably we also suspected that maybe in this, Pakistani forces could have used some of their commandos, to come in, induct them in the garb of terrorists, and then, so that was the environment, where people had suffered. So how do you counter it? It's very difficult for a democratic country, democratic government like ours, but then people's, which has come on the people's aspirations, and we have tried number of times to send an appropriate message to Pakistan that, look, terror and trade, or terror and talks, or terror and water, blood and water don't flow together. That's what neighbors have. Neighbors generally have trade between them. Neighbors have good relations. But this doesn't happen when you carry out such activities. So in background of this, there was declaration by the Prime Minister that this act of terror will be avenged, and those who have propagated this, those who are the actual culprits, they will be taken to task, and they will be brought to books, and they will be punished. Basic thing was that terrorism coming from across the border was punished. We took some diplomatic, to start with, we took some diplomatic action. We suspended the Indus Water Treaty, under which there are 6 rivers emanating from the north in the Himalayas, in the old way. 3 water goes to, Pakistan, and water of 3 comes to India. So we suspended, we did not. This is a treaty which goes to 1960s, which has been, World Bank has been the guarantor, or who initiated, mediated this treaty, in fact, So we walked out of that treaty. We also, curtailed, or you can say we shortened, or we cut their staff in the embassy. We dispatched their military attaching people, those who have been here, doing these things. We also, that time, closed the borders between the two states. We also walked out of the 1972 Shimla Agreement. So we walked out of a whole lot of things, and we sent a correct message. This is how, and our political leadership on different platforms, gave the message that we are going to. And Pakistan was contemplating something will happen, we will not let it go unpunished, So towards that, I think number of meetings were held, number of, discussions must have taken place in the government. Prime Minister must have consulted his security advisors, the 3 chiefs, the CDS, everybody must have been consulted. And this was then finally was decided that, we must strike at the terror camps. The terror camps in Bahawalpur, Murid Ke, all these have been old headquarters of Jaish-e-Mohammed, or Hizbul Mujahideen, and Lashkar-e-Taiba. They have worked from these headquarters, which are located in Punjab and, in occupied Kashmir, And these are training camps. These are headquarters from terrorists run. These are training camps where at one time these guys have not only sent terrorists to Jammu and Kashmir, but have exported, I would say, terrorists across the world. because the Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Toiba, and Hizbul Mujahideen, they are very, very dangerous terrorist organizations. They're like the Al-Qaeda, they're like the ISIS, what we have seen in Syria, what we have seen in Afghanistan. These guys are equally ghastly, equally, equally, I would say, radicalized, So we, on 7th we struck all these camps. We struck 9 of these camps, destroying bulk of their, with bulk of their infrastructure, causing death to the terrorists, We killed almost 100 terrorists in those 9 strikes on 7th. Thereafter, it's a history which world has seen, right? Thereafter, so Pakistan, for I think its own face saving, or for its own public motivation, or for it's showing that it is capable of retaliating, which its political leadership has been saying that, look, we will retaliate, we will destroy, beware India. They were also claiming their defense minister had been making such statements, So I think towards that they then started the so-called, I would say it was cross-border, not cross-LC, cross-border attack on the Indian territory with drones, with SWAM drones, with missiles, with their artillery, with heavy artillery. On the 7th evening, they started firing on India, and they flooded our border areas with drones and armed UAVs, unarmed UAVs, like that. So it was a clear message from their side that they are the one who wants to, now take the battle to us, take the initiative. Well, India again showed little patience and conveyed to the world, actually, that, look, what we wanted to do, we've done it. We just wanted to punish the terrorists. We wanted to teach a lesson to the terrorists. We just wanted to strike at the terrorist camps, and we had no collateral damage. Our strikes were very precise, and we had completely been able to deceive Pakistan. I mean, it was a classical surprise which they caused and deception. And that was the message, that if Pakistan now if it does not start this, we have nothing more to do. And I mean, as far as we are concerned, we are not taking any more proactive actions. We are only countering his threat. Towards that, Pakistan carried on. First it carried on 7th night, then it carried on 8th night, and then it carried on 9th night, and it became more intense and more widespread from Jammu and Kashmir, going right up to Gujarat, along the western border, Punjab, Rajasthan, Gujarat, And then they started targeting our military establishment, they started targeting our infrastructure, they started targeting our civilian population. And they thought that probably they are winning, and they probably in their own on public, they were conveying a message that, look, they are on the offensive, and India is now. So naturally, when such a situation happens, we struck again, and we this time struck very, very, very powerfully, with our air and with our missiles, with our strategic missiles, supersonic missiles. We struck at their main, from where the radars and where all this missiles were being shot. We struck at their air bases, their known air bases, at Rawalpindi. I mean, Chaklala, Noor Khan Air Base is very prominent. The Rahimia Khan, Sargoda, all these airfields we struck right from north to south. I mean, right up to the entire Punjab in the depth. We struck almost 11 sites, that night, and we caused fair amount of damage to their infrastructure, right? I mean, so we, after when we did this, probably somewhere Pakistan, buckled, and the political leadership probably must have realized, by then, that they are into thick, that their army has led them into a situation where, their population will now get hurt, their infrastructure will get destroyed, and they felt being sucked into a situation where, where they had violated, they had done the first terrorist attack, then they violated the LC, striking at our population, at our military establishment. And now when we've struck deep, we are struck at their establishments, We are stuck at their airfields, and we are stuck at their airfield in a manner that we cause deep damage. Quite substantial damage was caused to their airfields. It was for everybody to see. In this situation, probably they panicked, and then they approached the Americans for requesting India or feeling India if they can. And India had made it stand very clear that if they now stop it, we are not going to. So we are not going to take more actions. If they act, we will react, and we will act very strongly. So probably they understood the message, and their army realized it, and they Director General Military Operations requested our military Director General Military for a ceasefire and to lay off for suspending the so-called operations, we can call it. So that's how it happened, and then thereafter there were more calls, and it got suspended. So now we are in a state of suspension of an operation, you can say, or suspension of a like special military operation, I will call it. What you guys will call the. So like that. So that's the status of the date.
And what? Okay, the operation suspended, but what is actually the status of the suspension, you could say, or the halt or the pause of the ceasefire on the line of contact? Is it holding, or are there violations in your opinion?
On the first evening, I mean, when we declared it, and a little bit on the second evening, there were violations. But these violations were more out of, as it so happens when you want to lay off, when you call off the operations, this happens. So, but now it is holding. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing from their side, and we are not the aggressor. We have not violated the international border until unless we have been compelled. We are not a country which is aggressor, which is trying to capture somebody. Or we are a very peace-loving country. We have very strong fundamentals of peace and prosperity for the world. I mean, like our Prime Minister stated at global forums, this is not the era of war. So, but if you do something like that, we will do it. So thereafter, it is peace, it is calm, it is holding, and to my mind, it will hold. It will hold. Will hold. To my mind, it will hold for some time, till the time these Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed or Hezbollah Mujahideen, until their leadership is intact. The leadership is not gone. Their top leaders are still alive and kicking in Pakistan. So till they do not create another mischief, which I am quite sure that they will not do it in the near future, they will take time to recoup. They must be also assessing their damages to their cadre, right? Rebuilding cadre is not so easy, particularly fanatic cadre, and particularly it does deter, it does create fear. If population feels scared of such attacks, terrorists also feel very, very scared when they are attacked. They are also very timid, They have been indoctrinated. But when it comes to their lives, they are not so. They are not so brave. They're also in. So I feel they'll be on the back foot for some time. I mean, if something happens, then it will be, really creation of, not by the well-wishers of Pakistan, but some, when terrorism, you support terrorism, when you grow terrorism, when you export terrorism, then terrorism many facets. Then it eats you from inside. There are rivalries between the various tanjeems, the rivalries within the tanjeem, within the junior leadership. So if something is done, then if there are some hides already existing in India, some sleeper cells, if at their own they get activated, revengeful, these people are also, one section is hurt, the other feels very revenged, they want to take a revenge or something. Something like that may happen, but to my mind not, because our security forces are really on the offensive. Our homeland security is really tightened up, in J&K. So unlike, they are not going to leave themselves. This is what I feel.
Okay, well, yeah, pray to God that it does hold and people don't start dying. But with your vast experience as a commander of an armored brigade and regiment. Could you give us a unique look into what it would be like? Let's say if tomorrow, or hope never, but there is a full-scale war declared. What would it be like from the soldier in an armored regiment or brigade? What would the situation be like?
Patrick, Pakistan has not trained ever its army for a conventional war for a long period. Though they are a professional army, they're a well-organized army, their army has got weapons, they have got structure, they have got timely promotions, they are like any other army, but their whole doctrine is to have hybrid war, to use non-state actors, to use these terrorism has been their main tool, right? It's their main. And secondly, since Pakistan was quick to steal nuclear technologies and create its own nuclear facade and nuclear power, since nuclear weapons, I mean, it's holding nuclear weapons as a state, and that too a state which is radical. I mean, their army is quite radical. Not today, it has been radical since 1947, since we parted. I mean, their army was the first to get radicalized actually in that country, and along with some of the hardline leadership, and that's where the problem started. I mean, the political leadership which had asked for a second state, they were not probably looking at radical means. They wanted to also probably, like India grew as a democracy, as a state with complete welfare of people in mind, education of people in mind, the health of people in mind, the development of the various infrastructure, and we started so well, and we continued. Probably they would have desired that, but they have a very hardliner, I would say fundamentalist, or you can say radical element which twists their government decision making, which overpowers their, I would say their common sense and their sobriety, and they bring this radical, action in that country. So considering that there could be a war, I mean, and I'm been one of those person who says that there is no solution between us and Pakistan.
No solution.
Or between any two countries which have got such conflict, which is based on religion, which is based on hatred, which is based on radical thoughts, which is based on considering the other country as weak because it is democratic, it is flourishing, because that belief with these sort of things, only thing that can teach them or can then bring them to a reasonable negotiating table is using your military power, right? When you use military power, right, and you use it strongly and you use it decisively, where you create a situation where the enemy is forced to surrender, like we did it in 1971 war, where the enemy was forced to surrender almost over 90,000 prisoners and almost losing more than 13,000 square kilometers of territory, and where its equipment was, where its tanks were destroyed, where its air power was destroyed. So unless that happens to Pakistan, there is no way Pakistan will look for an ultimate, peace or ultimate solution, or will give up this dream of, annexing Jammu and Kashmir, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and fomenting terrorism in India. They would not succeed. So we got to ultimately the only solution with Pakistan, which I visualize, is a decisive war. So if a decisive war takes place, India's naval power is very high. India's air power is quite substantial, and the strength of India is India's land forces. I can only say that we have one of the most professional and the best trained land forces, motivated land forces the world could have. I mean, I think we are really, really very motivated and we tactically we are very sound. We operate the same weapons which are with most of our ground forces weaponry, like tanks. All this come from Russia, but our men They're really highly trained, and we use this weapon, exploit this weapon very strongly. So, as now, if I were to wear an armored brigade commander's uniform and launch my brigade there, I feel it will take us not more than 10, 12 days to bring Pakistani land forces, its mechanized forces, to a battle and cause them, everlasting damage. Then when I say degrade it completely to wage a war for next 50, 60 years. And that deters military commanders. When military loses, then military loses power because you lose faith in your public, you are no more the defender, you yourself has been defeated, your command structure is destroyed. So that is the ultimate, and that will not happen till we do not, draw him to a battle, a decisive battle, and destroy him.
Okay. Now, once it gets to that point, we've got the question, will they step across the red line, the nuclear line?
I think I'm of the opinion there's a lot of space between the actual nuclear battle and the battle. There is space. He may be in unstable state. Their leadership may not be that, but they are also not so foolish because I think they understand what it means to use a nuclear weapon. I'm of the opinion that most of the nuclear power globally, it's more of a deterrent. And once you cross that line of deterrence, mentally you cross that line of fear. It's a deterrent because it's a deterrent in the mind. It's a battle of minds going on, not amongst the soldiers, but it's a battle of minds going among the leadership. So when your leadership crosses that threshold, so what? Let him have it. Can he use it? Can I neutralize it? In time that he does not use it, do I have the capability to neutralize either his carriers or his command structure or his, and in right time or block his storage facilities wherever they are in a manner that you do not allow him to, to use the nuclear. So if you carry out a strategic planning like that and execute it like that, your war, then I think there is enough scope. Otherwise, what do you do with such rogue states? Today he has got 200 nuclear warheads. Tomorrow he will have 250. The day after he will have 300. So, such powers, they continue to grow Actually, in the entire Afghan anti-terrorist war, which started after 9/11, where before that it didn't hurt anybody. We were the only one getting hurt, and nobody was hurt, and everybody was thinking that probably we have a homegrown dissension in Jammu and Kashmir, and we are trying to palm the blame on the Pakistani, but Pakistani was drawing enough funds from America. They were drawing enough weapons from there. They were drawing enough strength, and their ISI was rich. And they were executing all this. They could bring terrorists from Afghanistan, induct them into Jammu and Kashmir, and they were doing all sorts of things. And until 9/11 didn't happen, the global terrorism or I would say radicalization of forces, 2000, that astride millennium, the last decade of 90s and the first decade of the millennium, the world witnessed the highest, terrorism that it could have seen. It was worse than Second World War. If you recall, you see there was ISIS which was running Syria into madness. They were running Iraq into this thing. They were complete Al-Qaeda and Taliban and all those. They were dominating completely the Afghanistan. And from here, they were sending terrorism across the world. If you remember, number of embassies a number of ships of US were targeted that time, if you remember. And Iran, in any case, was a very, very, very close state, but really on a very, very strong wicket of, I would say, of Islamic, that era, that nothing matters but the values of Islam matters. So, and Pakistan was doing this in our country. And globally, we saw a phenomena which was more dangerous, but 9/11 happened, and credit to the American soldier. He lost a lot, but he helped the globe in reducing the numbers. I mean, amount of if you see the Al Qaeda chart, if you see the ISI chart, if you see the other chart which were operating in African countries and things like that, everywhere they became weak. Their funding died down, their arming died down, their training died down. So that probably has helped the world, everywhere. And I think most of these guys, I believe, are now hiding in Europe as they migrated, in the garb of, if you really see them, I mean, large number of people are living in Germany, in all these countries, they've gone there as more, So now we are in a state where, the world as a body can take a decisive action, instead of solving the trade war, I think we need to sort out the terror war once for all. The trade war can be handled later, but the terror war, needs to be now sorted out once for all, because this has more danger for the world, right? The trade was only helping the world become global, the world becoming a global village, right? So prosperity was being shared where it was growing. Where innovations were coming and those were being shared, where new medical innovations were coming and they were being shared across the world. So world has really enjoyed this prosperity and this so-called good life, good living, good health, good education during this era. So now we need to finish terrorism once for all, and if all countries are run by the law of land and the international bodies, more worrisome is the war on terror, and more worrisome is to bring an international institute which can really do what UN did around 50, 60, 70, a balancing act. That is where that's how I view things.
Interesting. Yeah, I was in actually boot camp in the United States. I was in the U.S. Navy when 9/11 happened.
Right.
I just joined. Everything was peaceful, and then everything wasn't. So
we were having everything peaceful for a long time in Jammu and Kashmir, and then you had to Pelgam, and then you see what we did.
Yes.
Right. And that sort of a thing, I'm of the opinion, terror states, and people, those who promote terrorism, they understand only one thing: force, power, right? Power which they've not seen, destruction which creates fears in their hearts also. So they need to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm. And with all of the talk of back and forth with India and Pakistan and the fighting going on, a lot of people seem to forget about, I don't know, you could say the people in the middle. What can you tell us about the population of Kashmir and Jammu?
The population suffers. We have population living along the line of control. When they fire, population suffer. We first had casualties during Pelgam, and now we've had casualties along the line of control. And if you bring this sort of a thing along the international border, where you see drones coming every night and you see this missile striking, so there is naturally the people are bound to suffer. So people of Jammu and Kashmir have also suffered for these 30 years. They may have some overground workers, they may have some sympathizers. In the past, they've had some people, those who have, harbored them and protected them and, promoted them, and I would say, funded them. But common people there is pure Indian. He is as Indian as people living in Tamil Nadu or people living in Uttar Pradesh. They have their aspirations. They want to educate their children. They want prosperity, and they love the country as much as any one of us love. They are as integral part of you. Tomorrow go around the Delhi Heart. Here there is a place the boy can take you to Delhi Heart. Mm-hmm. A large number of these you'll find Kashmiri boys doing trade there. Talk to them. They are more passionate about this country than Pakistan can ever think of.
Yeah.
But yes, of course. But there are some elements which, because of lure of money or because of lure of, sometimes what happens is that population also gets sucked in. You make one mistake, somebody comes and hides in your house, somebody terrorizes you first, your family, then becomes owner of your house, and use you, misuse you. All sorts of things happen in this dirty war, I would say. Right? These things have happened to people of Jammu and Kashmir also. But I have got full faith that, look, the way people are voted last time, and the present chief minister, the second time chief minister, and our present government is taking all steps to normalize the situation, promote tourism, which is their main livelihood or main bring in industry, right? The youth of this country, understand that youth of Kashmir is as important as youth of any other place, and they need education, they need higher education, and they need to be with the mainstream. So that process is on, and such processes take time. You see, the most difficult thing in this world is to change a deep-rooted perception. You can change weapons, you can change clothes, you can change governments, but if there is something, you have perceived something wrong to you, then it takes time for that to settle down. That takes time. That is, changing the hearts and minds take time, right? So somewhere, these are very delicate feathers, if you ruffle them, it takes time. So the population of Jammu and Kashmir, to come back to Myanmar, is very, very dynamic. In Srinagar itself, if you go and see, they're such classical artisans. The type of work they produce, the type of, some of our old carpets and all this industry has been world-class industry because they're such very good craftsmen there. So all that, when you revive that, the whole thing, then then the actual, population will feel. And this is what Pakistan doesn't want to happen. He wants to depict to the world that it's a disturbed area. That's why he does these things. He wants to keep drawing Jammu and Kashmir in the center of global discussions and things like that on the world platform, but won't happen. So population do feel at times intimidated, at times scared, at times, disturbed, at times, it causes pain to them also. And particularly on the LC, the way Pakistan does, he doesn't target our hard element. He targets our population, he targets our schools, he targets our temples, he targets our mosques, he targets our gurdwaras, he targets our people, our health centers, our schools, children. So that sort of a thing when he does there, and that I think is the clear message that we have given, that any act of war any act of terror will be as an act of war, and we'll take punitive action like that. That is, I think, will send a little. And the other thing could be that it is time that, we encourage the population. We take bold steps to flourish tourism. As a country, we need to
support them.
To support tourism, to support, people, to bring that euphoria, And we got to, the day we have a huge population, So we got to forget this, put it in the past, trust our security forces, trust our infrastructure. Security forces has to create that environment of, which brings confidence amongst people. They got to be seen, their presence needs to be felt. They got to keep unearthing any terrorist, like that. So they remain on the offensive within the territory of India, and they remain alert, and population gets that confidence. I think it's a matter of time that that things will be better in change.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope soon I'll be able to see it with my own eyes. I'll be working my way that way. It should be an educational experience, just like us sitting here today. And I guess the last question I can leave you with is, what do you think the biggest misconception outside countries have about maybe the situation between India and Pakistan, or India as a whole?
See, we are a very misconception is that we are a very peace-loving country. We are a very peace-loving country, and we are a very soft country. But they think that in that they think that that we are a little soft, right? Mm-hmm. And they also try to promote. The Pakistani, the deep state has also, over the last 60 years, with the help of Western media and with the help of some Western, interested. I mean, the money is such a beautiful thing. It used to come from all these America and all these European countries in the garb of fighting Soviet Union in Afghanistan, or garb of fighting Taliban in Afghanistan. Used to land up in it was not only fueling, it was not fueling the economy of Pakistan, it was fueling the deep state's prosperity and deep state's, devious designs of, to defame India, right? They had created number of think tanks abroad. They had created number of people who could write abroad. And what they would write is that they showed as if, what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir is homegrown. That India, there is a divide in our society, that we are against the Islam, and it is because of and that they are looking at independence, that Jammu and Kashmir. People forget history, that Jammu and Kashmir has been, ever since the Ganges civilization, Indo-Gangetic civilization, has lived on this earth for 10,000 years, 15,000 years, I do not know. Jammu and Kashmir has been very, very integral part of India, always, So there's nothing like that. But this is the perception which was created, that if we are forced and we are governing by force, what Pakistan is doing in the occupied Kashmir, that they are running it through their military power. They are running it through their design of of no law and we are a very, very big democracy, and today we are proud of the thing there, that we can have differences here in the country. We can look from outside divisive in certain ways, because we have vast culture. We have a very, very big canvas when it comes to diversity of culture, diversity of languages, diversity of religion, diversity of practices, ethnicity. There is a languages. It's a diverse country. So in diverse country, impression was created outside that, look, we are devil in Jammu and Kashmir, and we are governing with force, and and people are with Pakistan, and people nonsense. If UN, after passing the resolution in January 1949, even if we had gone to the UN for the ceasefire there, and if they had removed Pakistan armed forces from there and actually conducted a plebiscite, the people living in occupied Kashmir, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, 90% of the people would have also voted to stay with India. The Indian, you see the way we have grown. Now you are moving around Delhi. You see how things have grown here. And you see the type of education centers we have built, the type of medical centers we have built, the type of higher education in terms of IITs that we have built, the type of medical infrastructure that we have built. We have 140 billion people, and a man can take a medicine at every 14 meters if he requires. You please walk 140 meters, you'll find some sort of medical facility, and you can and a common man from normal disease to an emergency disease can be attended in an emergency situation. There's nowhere in the world. We travel all over. So a misconception was created by Pakistan. Globally, an impression was created with the help of they had put some, some think tanks, paid Western, maybe second, third rank leadership there, buying the ideology, buying the newspapers, spreading hatred that India is. But you go around, there's nothing like that. We've carried out an open election. 64% people have voted. That's the percentage of people votes in UP or in all these states. Mm-hmm. So they want, and number of elections, not 1, 2, 3 elections are. At the peak of militancy, we've had election in 2002. We've had elections at the peak of militancy, and people have come out and voted. So that impression that we are forcefully governing J&K, and that impression which was created by Pakistan, by ISI, by the think tanks, is, I think, which needs to be course correction. The world needs to have a course correction in their mindset, in their perception. So that is what is more. And the Western countries, I mean, I'm of the opinion, the democracies have to feel that, look, they're running their huge, I mean, there would be, I mean, each country has had, I mean, a painful, situation in there. The Brits felt the Irish pain for long, So we must understand that there would be people, those who would have differences, because of A, B, C, D. But does not mean you fuel division in that country by deceptive method. Let deceit and deception and destructive ideologies like terrorism and radical elements, do this to a country like ours.
Understand.
Patrick, this is what I feel.
Thank you very much.
I mean, and I'm sure your people, your audience would like. India is a very peaceful, peace-loving country. We are looking at
I definitely recommend coming. I've only been here a couple of
progress and
days. and it's been
we are looking at
great.
prosperity and progress, and we are very positive, on that account. So.
Understand. One other follow-up question. You kind of hinted on the follow the money for the terrorism. I think I might know your answer, but in your opinion, how was these terrorists created? Who is at fault here? How were they able to be created?
You see, in the 80s, there was President Ziaul Haq, and in 70s, Ziaul Haq took over from Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was elected prime minister. The good elections were held, and Pakistan was looking a sober state, but they wanted to copy India on nuclear this thing. So they started two programs: a nuclear program of steal technology from anywhere in the world, and second they started was that, look, the only way to undermine India, to not let India grow economically, to not let India... See, we got independence in 47. We were earlier princely states, there were Britishers rule, there was a huge canvas, though Britishers were ruling, but still there were independent states, and we had a huge diversity. So they decided that, look, how can this diversity be exploited to be divisive, right? So, and how could they fuel with gun? How could they fuel? With gun culture, with terrorism? So this started actually. Ziaul Haq, to my mind, is the founding father of this terrorism in Pakistan, where they started cultivating this, started indoctrinating people, and started inducting people into Jammu and Kashmir. It all started around 87, 88, when they, in the garb of political activities, all these, if you see if you see the Orange Brigade movement in Ukraine, if you've been there, it all starts from streets, from political this thing, from calling the present setup as completely corrupt, and I mean the Farooq Abdullah government was called corrupt, and they cheated, and the elections were called farce, and a farce democracy. It all started from there in 1987. It started, and then 89, when we had a central government which was not very strong government in terms of numbers. They were a coalition government, and that 89 to 91, it really bloomed like anything. So that is the time when it's all, and that's the time when, I mean, if as a president of a state, military dictator of a state, if you start this sort of a thing, then you promote this sort of a thing with your friends and with your colleagues. And that is where terrorism really took off, And then it started in Afghanistan. The Russians became weak. I mean, to weaken the Russians, they used all these methods, of indirect war, right? So this indirect war then took the shape in 91 when the Afghan king, I mean the Afghan president, Najib had to really, and then he was hanged, if you remember. He had to really. So all this was done through indirect approach and a hybrid warfare or terrorism as a tool. So it grew that time, and it really grew at it. And then there were Then they were, I think, that is the highest time when radicalization, and then in Islam there were probably there were hardliners who were waiting for such opportunities, and it really flew. It almost destroyed Syria. It destroyed Iraq. I mean, it destroyed completely Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, and it went towards the African countries. If you see, it didn't spare anybody, right? Everybody, all these countries faced it. I mean, that is where this grew. I mean, and that is where I think.
And it all rooted.
All, I think they were somewhere, I mean, you imagine, I mean, Osama bin Laden, from where he started, and he could have the guts to strike America. Because the infrastructure, because the connectivity, because the funding, because they're spread to that level, This is what I feel, And some of the refugees which went from the Syrian war to Europe, I mean, there are elements in that who probably should have been scrutinized, to my mind. They also created instability, like that. So this is a very complex subject, and that's why I'm saying that instead of doing a lip service, right, and instead of trying to settle trade wars, and create more trade wars, I'm of the opinion war on terrorism needs to be mapped, and there may be small terrorism in every country, small elements growing there. We need to address this whole someday. The human race has to progress. I mean, but that's human race. There have to be some pitfalls in it.
All right, General, thank you so much for being here with us and educating us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Patrick.
It's been really educational, and I'm going to keep charging on to keep learning myself and letting my audience learn. So, not my opinions, not my information, not my point of view, but now with you, I'm slowly starting to gain a point of view on top of what I had known before. So please stick here with us. You heard it from the Major General, what the situation is, what might happen in the future, what's happened in the past, and what might need to happen to bring peace, and everything in between. So stick with us. We've got so much more information coming. As I said, I'm going to be trying to get as close to the front line or line of contact, or however you want to call it, as I can. I'm going to be going to Jammu and Kashmir, hopefully, and bring you so much more information. Stick with us. Subscribe, like, share, and comment below what you think I'm doing wrong, what you think I'm doing right, what else you want to see. We've got just so much more coming. Stick with us. And also remember, I'm totally crowdfunded, independent. I'm only funded by you, my viewers, and it's going to stay that way because I don't want anybody to tell me how I'm going to report, what I'm going to report. I only report to you, my viewers. So please, click the link on the screen or in the description or in the pinned comments and donate and support my work so I can continue on showing you what a little bit of a perspective you might not get in the Western mainstream media, so you don't have to rely on the Western mainstream media. Get as many sources as possible to educate yourself. Don't just watch my reports. Watch many reports from many different sides and think for yourself so you're not led like sheep by the Western mainstream media. We're out.